He was reincarnated into a fantasy world, but ends up raising the princess to be his wife, and becomes the strongest SS rank adventurer after creating a harem. Kelvin was an absolute failure who ends up getting eliminated by Truck, but is granted another chance at life in an alternate world by a princess named Melfina. He is dropped down into an empty forest, where he finally wakes up beneath the tree, not remembering anything about his prior life. He gets confused about who he is and where he is, when a small interface appears in front of him and starts speaking. The voice explains that he has been reincarnated into the world of magic and fantasy, where he can become an adventurer if he wishes. He checks his stats on the interface to find out that he has selected a support class for himself, and he is a summoner. He seems to be fairly happy about this and decides to go to the closest town in order to join a guild to begin adventuring. While walking through the forest, the interface screen reveals that she is actually the princess named Mel herself. They enter the bustling town, where Mel tells him about his lost memory by claiming that after dying, he ended up choosing a lot of abilities, and alongside that, he was able to charm Mel herself as well, and she decided to join him in this adventure. He asks why can't he see her, and she replies that he doesn't have sufficient mana points to do that. He then enters one of the guilds, and one of the receptionists gives him a form to fill. While listing his abilities as a summoner, he is stopped by Mel, who tells him not to do so, as the summoner class is extremely uncommon, and he is probably the only summoner in this entire kingdom. If this news is revealed, he might have to face problems. He decides to put his ability as a mage and soon receives his guild card. It denotes that he is an F-ranked adventurer as of now, and the receptionist claims that he needs to complete 10 quests if he wants to upgrade his rank. After that, the receptionist shows him a bunch of quests, and he decides to go after the slimes in the forest, as he can try his summoning spells on them. Before that, he buys an old wooden wand with all of his remaining money and leaves for the forest to earn some income. After walking for a bit, he finally spots some slimes and immediately hides in some bushes. He checks their stats and realizes that they are pretty weak, so he decides to not use his magic and simply weaken them by physical attacks. He jumps out and attacks the slime with his staff, but the slimes dodge away while one of them strikes him in the chest, throwing him back. Kelvin gets up once again and rushes in for an attack, but the slime dodges and counterattacks him 3 times in a row, knocking him down to the ground. Kelvin gets up one last time and goes in for an all-out attack, swinging his staff, but the slime dodges again. Thankfully, this time Kelvin immediately hits it with a second attack that knocks the slime to the ground, leaving it with almost no HP. Kelvin walks towards it and extends his arms, and the magic activates and the contract is formed. After that, he summons the slime and names it Chloe, before claiming that they are going to hunt some more slimes now. In the evening, they finally find a group of slimes and creep towards them through a bush. Kelvin tells Chloe to take care of the right one while he handles the other. Soon, they jump out of the bushes, and Kelvin immediately uses his wind magic to slash through the slime, while Chloe does some stylish boxing moves before eliminating his opponent. Kelvin is confused because Chloe seems to be extremely powerful and checks the interface to realize that even at level 1, it has amazing stats. Mel reveals that this is because he is the only SS ranked summoner in this world, and that's why his monsters are so powerful. While they were talking, Chloe finds another slime and beats it to the ground before Kelvin calls him back to his Pokeball. After reaching the town, he sells the core of the slimes for some profit and has enough money to get some food and a place to sleep for the night. While crossing through an alleyway, he sees a bunch of cages, and inside of it, some beautiful girls with slave collars on them. One of them is supposed to be a very rare half-elf who was caught recently. He decides to ignore this and simply walks by into an inn and gets a room for the night. Soon he goes down to have some dinner, and his life in this world starts to take form. He goes on some more adventures, fighting against a bunch of wolves, monsters, and other demons, ready to become the strongest adventurer alive. It has been some days since Kelvin has been adventuring, and finally, he has completed his 10th quest. So he goes into the guild and is upgraded to an E-rank adventurer, which seems to make a lot of people envious. Regardless, Kelvin asks for a high-ranking job, but before the receptionist can answer, a blonde-haired guy named Cash tells him that he should take out the Black Knight. He tells him that he is a D-rank adventurer and wants Kelvin to join his party. Kelvin looks at his stats and realizes that he is lying about his rank. He declines the offer and instead claims that they should have a competition about who can defeat the Black Knight first. Cash seems to be surprised at this, but agrees to it regardless. Before walking out the guild, Kelvin believes that Cash might set up a trap, but decides to go in anyway so that he can test how strong he is. Cash goes out into an alleyway and meets up with his teammates, including a blue-haired nerd and a big fat brute. The brute tells Cash that he simply wants to beat someone to a pulp, and with an evil smile, Cash tells him not to worry, as he has already found a victim. After reaching the Black Knight's castle, Cash and his cronies run inside, but as soon as they open the door, they find that all the monsters have already been killed. Suddenly, Kelvin appears from the shadows and tells them that they are late. He claims that the Black Knight is behind the doorway, but to get to him, they will have to fight Kelvin. Cash seems to be surprised by this turn of events, but before he could think of anything, Kelvin provokes the Brute by calling him a fat loser who has never seen a girl. This enraged the Brute, who rushes forward, but Kelvin uses his magic to turn the ground into quicksand, which traps the fatty inside of it. Following that, Kelvin uses his wind slashes at them, but the fatty blocks it, while the others barely dodge it. This freaks the nerd out, who starts running away, but Kelvin immediately summons Chloe to stop him, who has turned into a huge monster that chases the nerd back into the hall. While Kelvin was adventuring a couple days ago, Chloe started acting weird, and soon enough evolved into a giant slime monster that Mel claims to be one of the strongest summons alive, as it has the power to destroy an entire country on its own. Back in the present, Chloe smacks the nerd into a wall and knocks him out. Seeing this, the fatty uses his entire strength to get out of the mud, but is immediately grabbed by Chloe, while Cash rushes towards Kelvin to attack him. Kelvin beats the crap out of them, and with Chloe's help, ties them up with some rope. After that, he opens the door behind him, only to find a very cool looking armored knight with a giant sword. Kelvin moves forward and decides that he is going to capture the knight instead of defeating it. The knight, however, refuses to fight, and they sit down to have a conversation as the knight tells him about his tale of serving various kings, and even gives him a very old piece of candy. Kelvin cuts to the chase and asks him whether he would be willing to form a contract with him, and the knight replies that he has nothing better to do, so he will agree only if Kelvin can defeat him in combat. The knight falls, and the battle begins. Kelvin runs at the knight and uses his wind slashes, but they have no effect, while Chloe tries to strike him from behind. The knight easily grabs Chloe and halts it from attacking, while Kelvin charges at him and uses earth magic to create a diversion for Chloe to escape. Soon, the knight uses an aerial slash that Kelvin barely dodges before he himself uses an earth splitter that has no impact on the knight. The knight uses another air slash that Kelvin dodges, while Chloe engages him in a massive clash, totally distracting him and giving Kelvin the opportunity to use a trap. He uses a special magic that creates increased gravity around the knight, and he is forced to the ground. Kelvin thinks that he won the battle, but the knight shrugs off his magic before dashing toward him and delivering very strong slashes that Kelvin barely manages to avoid by using his earth magic. The knight closes the distance incredibly quickly and attempts to finish the job, but Kelvin uses his gravity spell once again, slowing the knight down, while Chloe appears in front of him and uses his solar beam to blast him away. The next morning, Kelvin goes inside the guild carrying the broken helm of the Black Knight that gets a lot of praise, as he also captured Cash and his gang red-handed, who are now put in prison for their crimes. He later climbs the stairs toward his room, and it is revealed that he was successfully able to forge a contract with the Dark Knight as well. He moves toward his room to get some much-deserved rest, when he suddenly notices an old man who seems to be waiting for him. The old man introduces himself as Leo, Guildmaster, and without wasting a single moment, straight up asks Kelvin whether he is from another world or not. This shocks Kelvin, who immediately checks his stats to find out that Leo is pretty high ranked and can probably perceive who he actually is. They sit down for some tea, while Leo tells Kelvin that the receptionist told him that not only did he capture Cash and his gang red-handed, but he also defeated the Black Knight alone. He then tells Kelvin that he knows that Kelvin is a summoner. He is stunned once again and thinks whether he can lie about his identity, but both Mel and the Knight tell him that he can't remain hidden forever. This gives him some confidence, and he calmly reveals that indeed he is the summoner, as it is no point hiding it any further. He then questions Leo in return, claiming that he should have been able to figure out that Cash and his gang were criminals, so why didn't he stop them? He calmly replies that Cash belongs to a noble family of a neighboring kingdom, and that's why he was out of his jurisdiction without any hard evidence. Leo then tells Kelvin to rest easy, as he is not here to be his enemy and would rather be his ally. Leo reveals that he has met individuals from another world before as well, and some of them are the heroes of a neighboring kingdom. Mel suddenly remembers about reincarnating them as well, and promises to give the details to him later. Leo claims that there was a prophecy recently, and it was said that the Demon King is going to be revived soon, and that is the reason why the monsters around the area are growing so violent and strong. He tells Kelvin that he wants him to defend the city against the common monsters, while the heroes deal with the Demon King himself. Kelvin asks what he will get in return, and Leo replies that he will increase his adventurer's rank personally, and he will be free to take any many jobs he wants. Moreover, they will provide as much support as they can, and apart from that, he will never expose his secret to anyone and provide him complete freedom. He agrees to the arrangement and is immediately ranked up to a B-graded adventurer. He goes back to the inn and gets some lunch before asking Mel about the tale of the heroes that were reincarnated before him. Mel informs him that not long ago, Truck Kun decided to strike and deleted 4 more guys and girls from Japan, so she decided to reincarnate them into this world as heroes that will fight against the Demon King. Soon after, he finishes his lunch and takes out the money he saved before going outside. Mel asks what is he planning to do with so much money, and he excitedly replies that he is going to purchase a slave. He walks past the same street and notices all the cages assembled there, just like before, when suddenly a man rushes past him completely covered in flames. While the trader quickly puts out the flames, the man seems to be a customer who gets furious at the trader and departs. The trader explains that one of her slaves appears to have a curse that burns anyone that touches her, and when Kelvin looks past him, he is stunned to see that it is none other than the half-elf girl. He inspects her stats and decides to purchase her from the seller. The trader seems to be surprised at this and informs him again that she has a curse, but Kelvin doesn't mind and hands him the money before taking her out. The girl appears to be frightened and in chains, but starts following him regardless. Sometime later, he turns around and tries to touch her, but the girl backs off, claiming that she has a curse and that she doesn't want to injure anyone. Kelvin calmly tells her not to be afraid and gently touches her head before using his SS rank magic to remove the curse that was placed upon her. The girl is amazed to know that she is not cursed anymore and breaks down into sobs, thanking Kelvin for this compassion, and introduces herself as Ethel, who was sold into bondage as soon as she was born. He tells her not to be afraid, as now he will protect her, and brings her back to the inn before asking the adorable plump lady to make them some food. The lady seems to be unsure about the girl, but when Kelvin tells her that she is a slave that he bought, she takes her into the bathroom with her to thoroughly wash her, while Kelvin waits at the table for some food. After some time, the lady returns back with Ethel, who is now dressed in a maid's outfit. They have their meal and return back to the room where Kelvin explains everything to her and shows her his other summons. They examine her stats and boost her levels, and soon the night falls and they all decide to get some much needed sleep for the adventures tomorrow. It has been a couple of months since Kelvin began adventuring, and now they are able to operate in a much more unified fashion. Ethel ended up mastering her archery skills, and alongside her flame magic, she is able to deliver fatal blows to enemies with a single strike, which supports their team a lot, as Kelvin, Chloe, Greed, the Knight all use melee weapons, and she is the only one who could use ranged attacks. After dealing with a monstrous tree, they return back to the guild, where the receptionist congratulates them, as after only one quest, Kelvin will be promoted to an A-ranked adventurer, while Ethel can obtain her B-ranked card. She tells them to prepare for the exam, but tells Ethel not to be concerned, as the last time when she took the exam, she used her invisibility and was easily able to defeat the instructor to earn her C-rank card. While there, the receptionist named Nan ends up inviting both him and Ethel to a sweet shop that just opened, and they agree to it. The next morning, they go down to the marketplace and seem to be having a fun time tasting desserts, when suddenly a group of unruly nobles arrive and kick their table away. Kelvin asks what the hell is their issue, and one of the lackeys yells that he is standing in front of the third prince of the neighboring nation. The fat square-headed prince decides to trash talk Kelvin and tells him to hand over the girls for a day or two if he wants forgiveness. Infuriated by this, Kelvin steps forward and blasts away one of the purple-haired henchmen into the wall, terrifying the fatty before doing the same to the other guy, leaving the ugly jerk alone. He then advances toward the prince and uses his gravity magic to restrain him in place while asking him what he is doing in this country. The prince refuses to reply, which leads to him getting pushed to the ground even more. Soon the fat, grotesque guy spills the information, saying that he is here to meet with the guildmaster named Leo, as he heard that there is a new adventurer who is extremely powerful and is currently using this guild as his base. He claims that he wants the adventurer to serve him so that he can gain some prestige and be viewed as someone suitable for the throne. Kelvin tells him that he is the adventurer and he will never serve someone as pitiful and overweight as him. Following that, they return back to the guild to get some rest. The next morning, Mel tells them some updates, as she recently got information about what the heroes have been doing, and she gives Kelvin the stats to examine them. Kelvin remarks that the heroes appear to be severely underleveled, considering that they were reincarnated a a year ago. Mel states that this can be troubling as the Demon Lord might get revived soon, and the heroes are not nearly powerful enough to face him. Compared to them, Kelvin and his squad have only been here for a little more than a month, but they are already much stronger and have advanced weaponry as well. While they were inspecting their weapons, the lady of the inn knocks their door and tells Kelvin that Leo wanted to speak to him. Kelvin heads over to the guild, where Leo informs him that recently, a bunch of adventurers discovered a hidden chamber inside of a D-rank cave, and the secret room appeared to contain an incredibly powerful demon that can be S-rank. This stuns Kelvin, as he has never battled against such a formidable opponent, but there is no one in this guild who can take this mission head on, so he accepts the quest. Later that day, Kelvin and his group finally arrive at the location, only to find Erd, the instructor who conducted Ethel's exam, standing there. He greets them and asks whether they are here to complete the mission, and Kelvin inquires about any developments. Erd truthfully reveals that they have no idea how powerful this demon might be, so he has established a protective barrier around the cave so that no one gets accidentally harmed. He leads them into a small shack that has a trap door from where Kelvin and his party descend downstairs. They walk through the dark and damp caves that look very frightening, but surprisingly enough, he doesn't seem to sense the presence of any life forms in the area. They keep walking before reaching a massive gate where Kelvin tells them to stop because now he can detect the presence of not only one, but two demons inside the room. They all get ready and open the enormous door to see a chamber full of skulls with no lights. They keep moving forward when they suddenly notice a demonic girl restrained on top of an altar. This startles Kelvin, but before he could think of anything, a voice is heard behind them, and they turn around to see a demon who introduces himself as Archdemon Victor. A chill goes down Kelvin's spine as he realizes that this demon is definitely S-ranked, but he maintains his composure and asks him who the girl is. Victor simply slams the door shut and the room lights up completely. He then claims that the girl on the altar is the daughter of the previous Demon Lord. This is very shocking news, as even Mel didn't know that the last Demon Lord had a daughter. Victor continues that he eliminated every single monster in this area so that any human can easily reach this room, and without any further dialogue, attacks Kelvin head on. Thankfully, Gerard blocks the hit with his shield, but is pushed back because of his immense power. Kelvin immediately uses his gravity spell to restrain him in place and asks what he desires from them. Victor reveals that he has a seal placed on him and only humans can remove the seal. Once his seal is removed, he will consume the daughter of the Demon King and become the mightiest demon alive and the next Demon Lord. With that, he breaks free of the gravity spell and gets ready to eliminate Kelvin and his party. But instead of being afraid, Kelvin is brimming with excitement, as he has never confronted such a powerful enemy before. Victor is puzzled to see that Kelvin seems thrilled rather than frightened, so he uses a dark magic spell and creates a bunch of undead creatures that rise up from the skulls and assault our heroes. Kelvin immediately uses his wind slash to deal with these creatures, while Gerard smashes them left and right with his sword, but tells Kelvin that their numbers could be a threat if they are not cautious. After that, he uses his special aerial slash to eliminate a bunch of monsters, but they seem to be multiplying faster than insects as they keep attacking our heroes while they destroy them one by one. Victor seems to be quite amazed and impressed by their performance, as they attack in perfect harmony. Kelvin walks toward him and asks whether he would like to fight now, and hearing this, Victor simply laughs and punches the ground to create a smoke cloud covering everything. Kelvin tells Gerard to remain calm, as the demon seems to be underground, and as soon as he tries to attack, Gerard is able to block it with his shield, startling Victor. Gerard follows up with another attack, but Victor escapes before striking Kelvin, who evades the blow. Victor again appears in front of the Black Knight, and they engage in a brutal duel, but by the end of it, Victor is able to overpower him and knocks him away. Kelvin gets a little anxious, but before he could react, one of the demon's hands attacks him and he is forced to guard and dodge out of the way. Before he can regain his footing, Victor appears behind him and tries to strike, but thankfully, Chloe appears and defends against the blow, saving Kelvin's life. Shocked by the arrival of a new summon, Victor tries to hurl Chloe away, but he dodges out of the way, while Kelvin uses this diversion to cast a binding magic on the demon, restraining one of his hands. Gerard runs up to him and is prepared to strike, but Kelvin halts him just as Victor uses his power to break through the binds. Kelvin immediately casts a magic buff to Gerard's sword and tells him to to strike, but Victor merely grins as his hand is already behind Kelvin, ready to hit. Kelvin suddenly tells Ethel to reveal herself, and to Victor's astonishment, she appears right behind him with a fully charged arrow and fires it. Victor is somehow able to pull back his hand and blocks the shot, receiving an immense amount of damage, while Gerard uses this opening to strike and severs one of his arms. Kelvin tells everyone to retreat as the demon starts laughing maniacally and declares that he is going to assume his final form, and soon his body begins transforming into a massive demon. Kelvin quickly tries to finish him off before he could transform, and uses an earth splitter alongside a flaming arrow and Gerard's aerial slashes, but they are a bit too late as Victor transforms into his final form, and his armor easily deflects the damage. Victor immediately charges towards the party, while Kelvin creates a barrier which is easily shattered, but Gerard intercepts the assault at the last moment and uses all of his might to push him back. This doesn't seem to be sufficient, as the demon swiftly overpowers him and pummels him to the floor and gets ready to deliver the final strike, but is shot at by Ethel, who distracts him with a constant barrage of arrows, giving Gerard an opening to get back on his feet and assault Victor. Gerard unleashes a massive combo of sword slashes, but Victor is unexpectedly agile and is able to evade and parry all of them. Suddenly, Ethel starts firing at him once more, and while he was busy dealing with her, Chloe appears in front of him and launches a barrage of cursed blades at him that knock him down. Kelvin seizes advantage of this opportunity and uses one of his most potent spells accompanied by flaming arrows and Chloe's solar beam. This mixture of magic hits him square on the chest, and he is blasted into the wall, which creates a huge tremor, and some part of the ceiling starts crumbling on them. To Kelvin's shock, Victor uses his body to block one of the enormous boulders that was going to fall over the Demon King's daughter, and after that, he collapses on the floor, utterly defeated. Kelvin walks up to him and asks why the hell did he try to protect the girl, and finally, he discloses the truth. He explains that he was one of the most loyal followers of the former Demon Lord, and was ordered to keep the existence of his daughter a secret, as it might place her in danger from the heroes or some other foes. Victor taught her how to battle, how to write, and everything else in this very fortress, which is now a dungeon. Sadly, the day of reckoning came, and the humans arrived with the heroes overwhelmingly outnumbering the demons. Knowing that there was no way to flee this, the Demon Lord gave him one final duty of ensuring that his daughter survives and placed a seal on her, which can only be broken by a kind-hearted human. While taking his last breath, Victor requests Kelvin to take the girl into his party and show her the world, as all she has ever known is ruin and carnage. After uttering these final words, he passes away, while Kelvin walks up to the altar and breaks the seal that brings the girl out of her slumber. She seems to realize what was happening and immediately starts sobbing, while Kelvin tries his best to console her. After a while, they all walk out of the dungeon to find Erd waiting for them. He asks what occurred inside, and Kelvin lies that the girl on his back was inhabited by a demon, but they were able to slay the demon and rescue her. He then gives him a piece of Victor's armor and tells him that this is the proof that they defeated the demon, and with that, they quickly move out from the area to sit atop a mountain. He knows that if anyone finds out that not only is this girl a demon, but the daughter of the Demon Lord herself, it could be a huge issue. She seems to have calmed down by now and introduces herself as Sarah. She asks whether he is sure that he wants a demon in his group, but Kelvin clearly can't pass a chance of building a harem and tapping some demon booty. She claims that it is incredibly remarkable that he was able to defeat Victor, who was one of the mightiest demons in his era, and asks who exactly is he. Kelvin replies that he isn't any champion, but just a regular adventurer who enjoys combat. After that, he asks whether she is prepared to go with him, but she is a little nervous, as she has never left the mansion before, let alone visit a city. Thankfully, Ethel and the others reassure her and explain how wonderful it is going to be, and soon she is ready to come with them. They travel back to the city, and everything that Sarah sees is unfamiliar to her. She gets thrilled about every small thing, including fruit vendors, traders, smiths, and even fountains. Kelvin tells Ethel to look after her while he goes back to the guild. As soon as he opens the door, he finds a celebration arranged by Anne waiting for him, as he has been promoted to an A-ranked adventurer. They all drink and feast late into the evening, after which they all crash into a dreamless rest, waiting for their next quest. Some days have passed since they found Sarah, and finally, she has warmed up to them. To enhance their team's capability, Kelvin learned the craft of blacksmithing and forged some excellent armor and bracers for Sarah, a new blade for Gerard, and a hidden item for Ethel. He seems to be exhausted from all the labor and decides to lie down when he suddenly recalls that ever since he arrived here, all that he has eaten is bread and not a single grain of rice. He immediately decides that he needs to locate a place where rice is cultivated, and after a couple of days of study, they get ready for a journey to a kingdom called Torach. They travel on a horse carriage, which is a first for Sarah, who still gets excited over every tiny thing that she sees, including the stream and the boat. Suddenly, the cart halts as a bunch of bandits ambush them. A blue-haired Karen, who seems to be the leader of this gang, orders the driver to stop moving if he values his life, while she spots both Ethel and Sarah inside the cart. Kelvin asks the driver whether he knows about this crew, and he replies that this faction lives in the Torridge region and are a renowned band of robbers. Kelvin quickly checks their stats, only to be dismayed by their levels that are under 30. He tells Sarah that she can toy with them if she wants, but tells her that she can't use her bracers as it would be too dominant. She gets disheartened but still steps out alone, which stuns the bandits, but the Karen simply snickers at her and tells her minions not to hurt the girls as the boss would want them intact. One of the men steps forward but is blown away just by a tiny jab. This startles the gang of thieves, but Karen takes some copium and tells the rest that it was merely a coincidence. The other guys charge at her together but get flung away similarly, while the big brute attempts to smash her with a giant hammer. But to their amazement, Sarah simply halts the hammer with one hand, and after a moment tips it toward the brute, who falls to the ground pinned by his own weapon. After that, Sarah binds them all up with some rope, but Karen can't keep her mouth shut, and like the typical blue-haired feminists, starts shrieking at them that her boss is level 70 and will make them pay with their lives. Kelvin and Sarah are unbothered by it and tell her that Sarah herself is level 75, which terrifies Karen, and she finally goes quiet. After that, they finally arrive into the kingdom, and Kelvin realizes that it looks like an older version of Japan. They wander around the place, and both Ethel and Sarah witness the ocean for the first time in their lives. After that, they head straight to the Adventurers Guild, where an elderly woman greets them and claims that Leo has told her all about them. She claims that she used to be in the same team with Leo at one point as well. This makes Kelvin trust her more, and he tells her about the thieves that they captured. The lady takes this seriously and tells them that this group is known as the Black Wind, who were once defeated by some A-ranked adventurers who are now honored as national champions. According to her data, now these champions decided to take charge of the group themselves and use it as a cover for human trafficking. Ethel claims that they should instantly track these people and seize them, but the lady states that it is not that simple, as if they arrest the national champions, this could trigger hostility between the government of Torak and the government of Parth where they are from. Kelvin thinks about it when he suddenly feels the presence of some individuals coming through the front gate of the city, and his suspicions are confirmed after he spots the hero and their party walking into the city. He tells the guildmaster that if the hero's party took down this band of bandits, then the public cannot be disappointed, and the heroes do not belong to any one government, so there would be no problems in that regard. The guildmaster agrees with this suggestion and invites the heroes into the guild before explaining the situation to them. Meanwhile, Kelvin and his party go into the hideout of the criminals and kick open the door, knocking one of the raiders out, only to find a Joker-looking guy harassing some women. Before he can react, Gerard shoves him into the wall, knocking him out. They then move forward and open the door of the room where the bosses are, and immediately a clash happens. The chief of the squad thinks that he is on the same level as them, but Kelvin soon tells him that defeating his entire crew is easier than washing dishes, before unleashing a magic attack. Meanwhile, the heroes group enters the dungeon and starts walking through the corridors, trying to find the captives. They come across a door and open it to find Chloe in front of all the prisoners. The guy immediately takes out his blade, but one of the slave girls runs up in front of the slime and tells the hero that this slime belongs to the adventurers who rescued them. They are still on edge, but the girl's mom explains that some A-ranked adventurers came before, and they were able to liberate them before going further and to deal with the bosses. Before going, they left the slime behind to make sure that the captives are safe. After that, the woman tells the heroes that they should quickly go behind them, as the bosses are seasoned warriors and the A-ranked adventurers won't be able to handle them alone. The hero and his squad immediately rush out of the room into the hallway to finally find another door. They burst into the room only to find the actual gang bosses on the floor, but they mistakenly believe that they were the A-ranked adventurers. After that, they enter another room only to find Kelvin and his squad sitting in a very villainous pose, waiting for them. Kelvin keeps acting evil and tells the hero named Toya that the A-ranked adventurers were no match against him, and they were crying like a baby when he was beating them, and he didn't even have to try at all. Toya immediately draws his sword, followed by the other girls in his squad, while Kelvin laughs at them before standing up and claiming that he wants to propose a challenge. Whoever wins the challenge will do whatever the victor tells them to do, and because the hero's squad shares a single brain cell amongst them, they agree to this. He tells them that he will be fighting them all at once, alone, and they can use whatever way they want to try and beat him. At first, Toya tells him that he can't fight like that, as it is dishonorable, but the girls in his group knock some sense into him by claiming that Kelvin looks like a strong opponent and they shouldn't take chances. Meanwhile, Kelvin goes back to his squad and explains his plan, which is to use the heroes to testify against Kristoff and his gang of bandits so that the people of this kingdom have no option but to believe them. Moreover, he really wants to battle the heroes' squad to see how strong they are, and also so he can use his new secret gear. The heroes squad themselves up and get ready to fight. They all release their special abilities and rush towards Kelvin, assuming that he is a caster and won't be able to fight in close quarters. Kelvin, however, is much stronger and simply uses blasts aimed at them that stop Toya and one of his companions on the spot. The long-haired girl tries to use an aerial slash, but Kelvin immediately dodges, only to be attacked by the Tamare of their squad, who has a dragon in her backpack. The dragon breathes flames at him, but he immediately uses a speed buff on himself and escapes the attack range. He quickly appears behind the white-haired cutie and touches her from behind using his special armor and skill named Skill Eater that lets him copy anyone's powers just by touching them. He is able to steal the cutie's special ability as she falls to the ground unconscious. Toya quickly runs at him with an attack, but Kelvin immediately dodges and falls back. The girls quickly start healing the cutie, while Toya pursues Kelvin and keeps slashing at him again and again, only to be blocked. Kelvin soon realizes that Toya's sword techniques are higher than him, and soon enough a part of his wand breaks off when it clashes with Toya's blade. Toya pursues after him, while he simply punches his blade away. This shocks him, but he keeps attacking with his blade, while Kelvin simply uses his bare hands to block the blows and push him back. The girls are beyond surprised, as Toya has S-rank sword skills, and still Kelvin is able to fight him without any weapons. Soon enough, the long-haired girl named Satsuna decides to assist him, but Toya simply evades the strike and backs off while forming a huge earth wall in front of him. Satsuna employs her special ability, which allows her to slice through anything in front of her, and the wall is neatly cut into two. Before she could regain her balance, Kelvin powers up a massive blast and fires it toward her, but the blast is blocked by Toya, who takes heavy damage but saves Satsuna. His party members appear to be concerned about him, but he stands up once again, only to get slapped by Satsuna, who urges him to think about himself too. This makes things quite uncomfortable for Kelvin, as he merely stands there and waits while the girls give Toya a pep talk about how they are all a squad, and the only way they can proceed is if they cooperate. Kelvin asks whether they are finished with their chatter, as he is growing pretty bored. The heroes are finally set to fight with a renewed sense of unity when suddenly someone tosses a flashbang at him, completely blinding him. The tamer, Nana, instantly uses her frost magic to try and freeze Kelvin, while the cutie employs her gravity power to halt Kelvin in his tracks. Meanwhile, both Toya and Satsuna charge towards him with their swords drawn, which compels Kelvin to use detonation magic to create some space between them. Toya and Satsuna rise from the ground and glance over to see Kelvin emerge out of the dust completely unscathed. He tells them that it was a good show of coordination before turning toward Nana and Cutie. He tells them that after they cast their binding spells, they should have followed it up with some offensive spells, which would have made it much harder to break free and respond to Toya and Sasuna's strikes. He then tells Sasuna that her strikes are far too easy to read and that she should try not to overthink before acting. This makes Toya really angry, who decides to activate his unique skill, and his sword suddenly splits into two. He starts swinging the swords around like a complete fool, but his teammates are equally finished and think that he is valiant. Satsuna gets ready for an assault as well, but this time Nana attacks first with her strongest ice magic that creates a cluster of icicles beneath Kelvin, and he is stuck due to all the ice above, unable to move very freely. Meanwhile, the cutie also chooses to join in and uses her power to create a massive golem that charges a magic shot and launches it at Kelvin. He realizes that this is becoming exciting, so he creates a couple of golems of his own that intercept the attack while he tells them to buy him some time. He immediately starts forming a bunch of magic circles around him all at once that frighten and confuse the heroes. But soon enough, the cutie realizes that he is attempting to cast an extremely powerful attack that can release him from the frozen icicles. Satsuna immediately leaps into action, slicing through the golems and heading toward Kelvin, but before she could reach him, he is able to unleash this new spell that generates a large number of very strong blasts that totally destroy the icicles, freeing him. Satsuna then backs off, but decides that she cannot let him gain the upper hand and thrusts herself once more into combat, but Kelvin is simply quicker than her, and before she could hit him, he punches her in the stomach, knocking her down. Suddenly, Cutie's ogre starts attacking him, and he realizes that the best way to destroy it is to aim for the castle. faster, so he leaps up in the air and knocks the cutie down as well, destroying the ogre entirely. Observing this, Nana takes to the air on her baby dragon and uses an ice magic to encase herself in an icy crystal. But before she could reach him, Kelvin simply uses the binding magic he used against Victor, and Nana instantly is unable to move and falls from the sky like a dead fly. Toya is able to catch her before placing her down and turning his attention toward Kelvin. He is furious and starts wildly slashing at him, while Kelvin is able to cleanly block his attacks repeatedly. Just as Toya starts preparing for a massive strike, Kelvin cleanly bypasses his guard and uppercuts him, knocking him out as well. Sometime later, Toya awakens from his slumber and immediately looks around to see his teammates staring at him worriedly, while Kelvin sits beside the slave girl. At first, he instantly looks for his sword, but then he spots it resting on the girl's lap. Confused as heck, he asks what is going on, and Kelvin finally reveals that he is merely an adventurer, and his team rescued the slave girls before they arrived. Toya asks why they had to fight then, but suddenly remembers that while they were fighting, Kelvin kept telling him what they were doing wrong and was likely trying to train them. Toya immediately apologizes and bows down, begging Kelvin to instruct him some more about how to battle more effectively in a group. The next morning, Kelvin meets up with the guildmaster, who thanks him for capturing the Black Wind bandits and states that they are all decaying in a dungeon right now. She asks whether he would be remaining in this city for longer, but Kelvin replies that he will probably depart soon after unwinding a bit. After that, Kelvin, his team, and the champions go into a small cavern by the seaside where Toya and his squad combat a giant squid creature as a drill, while Kelvin points out their weaknesses as a group and as individuals. He leads them through the battle, and soon enough, the squid is lifeless on the ground. After that, they all sit down on the picnic prepared by Ethel, and they all begin eating, while Toya explains to Kelvin about how he was reincarnated into this realm. According to him, he was hanging out with his friends in the classroom when suddenly everything began shining, and suddenly they encountered a princess named Mel who brought them into this world. They awoke in a cathedral before a priestess who has been advising them ever since. Toya tells them that they need to be cautious about themselves first and foremost, and must ensure that they are not blindly diving into peril just because they wish to rescue someone. Toya apologizes for his actions and states that there have been several instances where he has endangered his group simply because of his hero syndrome. Suddenly, Sarah returns and claims that she caught a massive fish, but when she pulls it out from the water, it turns out to be an S-rank water dragon. Sarah immediately begins striking it with her fists, almost playfully, while Toya and his group are stunned as heck to see someone battling an S-ranked creature without even breaking a sweat. Later that day, Toya and his squad bid farewell, where Kelvin gives them a pendant each that he crafted himself as a charm for good fortune. After that, the heroes board a vessel and depart from the coast while Kelvin and Gerard observe them. Kelvin turns around and tells Gerard that he intends to spend some additional time exploring this continent, and he appears to agree with this idea. While chatting, suddenly a courier arrives with the message that the Queen of Torak has summoned their presence in her court, and they immediately dash to the castle. Kelvin is awed to see the scale of the castle and the fact that it is traditional Japanese design. Gerard says that he heard that the first emperor of this area was also a man who was summoned here as a champion from another world, and he brought pieces of his culture and reshaped this region. They finally step into the castle, and after removing their footwear, they all bow in front of the queen, who tells them not to stress about the etiquette and thanks them for their assistance with the capture of the Black Wind Thief gang. She tells them that typically she would have held a grand public event to honor them as heroes, but considering that they are from Parth, it could cause some problems with the residents here. She then asks Kelvin to request anything he wishes as a reward for the work he has done, and if it is within her authority, she will grant it to him. Kelvin simply responds that he knows that Torak is cultivating a grain which is quite similar to rice that existed in his world, and asks for the approval to purchase this crop from her nation. The queen appears puzzled and asks why he is not requesting wealth, fame, or treasures, but Kelvin replies that he doesn't really care about all that and would just like to have some rice for himself. The queen chuckles at this and claims that he doesn't need to purchase anything, as she will have his carriage stocked with a heap of rice, and if that ever runs out, he can simply send a note to her and she will dispatch more. Following that, she arranges a modest feast for our heroes, and they all consume a mountain of rice alongside some classic Japanese meals that they all relish to their heart's content. Some days have passed now, and Kelvin has been residing at the castle alongside his crew as the queen's guest. rest. Ethel arrives in his chamber and has started cooking a variety of Japanese meals, which everyone is amazed by, as she has A-rank culinary abilities. He starts eating the rice balls when the queen also enters to share, declaring that even her chefs can't craft a rice ball as tasty as this one. She then asks Kelvin whether he would wish to remain here in Torak and serve under her, but he politely declines the offer, stating that they are adventurers, and they usually don't serve under anyone. The queen chuckles and tells him that if he ever changes his opinion, he is welcome to serve in Toraj. That evening, they all prepare to depart back for Parth when the queen informs them that they are going to use a unique method of travel, and they go down into the underground to see a teleportation gate. She tells him that this is linked to the gate and Parth, and that they will instantly arrive there once passing through. Kelvin and his group bids farewell to the queen and proceed through the gate to finally arrive at their hometown. The next morning, Kelvin sits down at the dining table while sipping his tea before telling Ethel that he has purchased a home for them and they would be residing there from now on. They are all delighted as they see the grand mansion for the first time and eagerly open the door to enter. They also discover the two slaves that they rescued in Taraj, named Ellie and Luca, who would now be serving as the attendants of this mansion. Sarah immediately dashes off to claim the largest room for herself, while Gerard heads into the basement to establish a training area. Ethel rushes to find the kitchen, while Chloe appears to be content with the garden and wishes to live there. Kelvin later arrives at a room that has been transformed into a full bathhouse and takes a long, much-needed soak before collapsing on his bed for the night to rest. Suddenly he hears Mel's voice, who claims that he has gathered enough experience, her and Maina points, that he can now summon her. Thrilled beyond belief, he quickly gets out of bed and instantly chants a spell that forms a magic circle, and through it descends the stunning Princess Mel, who looks just as lovely as my girlfriend. She asks whether he believes that she looks beautiful, and he replies that he always wanted to clap some princess cheeks before turning in for the night. The next morning, everyone is welcomed by Mel at the breakfast table, but no one seems to recognize her until she discloses that she was summoned last night by Kelvin. Everyone is stunned to have a real princess among them, but they soon grow accustomed to her while she cheerfully eats cookies prepared by Ethel. Kelvin asks whether calling her by her true name would be alright, as she is a well-known princess, but she responds that many people name their daughters after the princess, so it shouldn't attract any suspicion. She then turns to Kelvin, and as gratitude for reincarnating her, she grants him a gift by drawing a flower in the air with her magic that floats into his chest. She states that he now holds the blessing of the Princess of Reincarnation, which will grant him two unique abilities that are not held by anyone else on this world. Kelvin eagerly awaits the announcement as Mel explains that the first ability is a defensive one, which can be used once per month and will shield him from an attack that would have taken his life otherwise. Kelvin is very pleased with this, as it now gives him a little bit of margin for errors, since even if someone catches him off guard, he will be protected. Mel appears to be glad that he appreciates the skill before unveiling that this is not even the main ability, and the core unique ability that he now holds is the power to summon his own heroes. This astonishes everyone, including Kelvin. Later that day, Sarah challenges Mel to a friendly duel in the underground training area that Gerard has arranged, and the match begins. They both go all in from the beginning, striking each other with their strongest skills while going back and forth. Gerard calmly sits on the side bench alongside Luca and observes the duel unfold, impressed by the talents of both fighters. Suddenly, Sarah uses a distinct technique that creates a special gauntlet on her arms and charges in to strike Mel, while she casts another spell to reinforce herself and rushes in with a spear thrust of her own. The attacks collide and Mel's spear breaks on impact, but Mel simply grins while Sarah realizes that her gauntlet has been destroyed as well. They duel some more before Sarah is able to gain a slight upper hand and brings Mel down to her knees. Gerard applauds both fighters for an outstanding performance while Sarah helps Mel get up. After taking a bath, Mel decides to visit Kelvin, who is still pondering over the way this world functions. He is unable to comprehend why heroes need to be summoned in order to defeat a demon lord, as there must be several powerful S-ranked adventurers that can unite and probably bring the demon lord down. Mel startles him from behind and makes him swallow 2 chocolates while he asks her why there is a necessity to summon heroes, and isn't there a method to prevent the demon lord from ever returning. Mel clarifies to him that the reincarnation of the demon lord is a reality in this world, which is more or less a natural cycle that can't be altered. It is a cruel loop embedded in the fate of this world that every few centuries later a new new Demon Lord is born. She tells him that the Demon Lord cannot be recognized as it appears like a normal demon, but there are two special characteristics that make him distinct. The first one is that the malice inside the Demon Lord naturally increases again and again, to the point where no matter how gentle the Demon Lord was in the beginning, by the time he starts ruling, his character will be turned into pure evil. The second most broken power that he holds is the talent to cancel any sort of magic. This truly stuns Kelvin, who asks how the heck are they ever going to conquer him if he can nullify all types of magic. Mel grins and informs him that this is why the heroes are brought from a separate world, as they are not from this realm, so the natural laws don't affect them, and their magic is essentially distinct from this world as well, which means that the Demon Lord can't negate their magic. Kelvin inquires whether this implies that even his magic will impact the Demon Lord, and Mel responds that it will. She continues that the title of heroes is simply granted to these individuals as it provides the nearby population living in these war-ridden regions a sense of hope when they hear that heroes are coming to rescue them. Kelvin still appears to be very doubtful about summoning someone from the ordinary world without their permission and straight up throwing them into a land of beasts and demons where they will be obligated to endanger their lives. Mel seems to acknowledge this and explains that he has two alternatives. He can either summon a person to this world, or he can reincarnate them. The contrast between them is that the people who get summoned are like the heroes group, living humans who are transported to this world. But the ones who are reincarnated are similar to Kelvin, who got erased by Truck Kun and are offered a chance to begin a fresh life in another realm. This makes more sense to him, and he seems to be more inclined to reincarnate a person to this world and offer them a second opportunity at life, just like he received one. Later that evening, Kelvin ends up making a decision and determines that he will reincarnate a hero to this world. Everyone gathers in the dungeons while Kelvin prepares to utilize his exclusive skill for the very first time. They all stand in a line while Kelvin calls all of his summons back. Eiffel then gives him a shot of Russian vodka as he wants to summon Vladimir Putin himself. He then recites the incantations and suddenly a massive magic circle emerges on the ground. A vast amount of mana points are consumed during this, so he sits down on a chair and sips some tea like a refined British gentleman while waiting for Putin to arrive. He asks Mel whether he committed a mistake or did anything wrong. Mel serenely replies that he should just wait, as the person who is being reincarnated seems to be selecting their abilities among other elements. He waits for some more moments when suddenly Mel states that the selection process is finalized, and soon enough a shadowy figure emerges from the magic circle. As soon as the dust settles, Kelvin is slightly disheartened to see that instead of Putin, some random Chinese factory worker got reincarnated. This girl glances around, puzzled and stunned, but Kelvin calmly steps toward her and says that she doesn't need to fret as she is secure. He then tells her that he was the one who summoned her here, and she instantly brightens up, introducing herself as Rio and claims that she met an angel before arriving here who told her that she is going to become a hero soon. Kelvin smiles and tells her that this is true, and immediately she starts crying out of joy and hugs Kelvin. She seems relieved to have a chance at life again and appears so exhausted that she ends up sleeping while crying. Kelvin looks at her affectionately, but soon enough, even he starts feeling incredibly drowsy as he has used almost all of his mana points to summon Rio. Later in the night, Rio wakes up from her slumber and is dazed, only to remember that she has been reincarnated into a new world. She thinks about her last days in the hospital after she got hit by Truck Kun, who was on a rampage, and even the doctors were unable to save her, and her life was taken away. She goes outside of the mansion and is extremely happy to see the beautiful night sky filled with twinkling stars. She starts running on the grass before falling over, as she is still not used to running so much. Suddenly, Kelvin appears and smiles at her, claiming that he was reincarnated in this world the same as her. He claims that even he got deleted by Truck Kun and was summoned to this world, but he doesn't have many memories of his previous life. He claims that even he was terribly confused at first, as he had no friends or allies and was basically all alone in a completely new world, but he ended up making a lot of friends in a short duration of time, and soon this place became his home. He kept adventuring and fighting different monsters, and before he knew, he was upgraded to an A-rank adventurer in this world. Rio wonders why the hell this grown man is flexing on her, but tells him that she always wanted to live in a fantasy world because she was a gamer who never touched grass or had any friends. So when Truck Kun decided to pick her as as his next victim, she was very surprised and oddly happy. She thanks him for summoning her to this world, and Kelvin smiles before telling her that they both have black hair, which is not very common here. So Kelvin has told everyone that they are siblings from a faraway land called Alabama. She is happy to hear this and soon gets officially enrolled in Kelvin's harem and his party. To all Leaf Village ninjas, that is it for today. Recap: do not forget to join our clan, our army, my friend. You can do that by clicking that red button below the video. Destroy it for me with that bell. To follow us on YouTube with many videos to come in the following days. So see you later, bro. Peace out.